11. Railroading. This is stupid. Lanka, Jamie trailed off at the back of the car. Calm down. Ryan listened to their bickering while peeking through his car's window. Dynami's Star Studios, which won a prize for name originality, spanned roughly 2.5 square kilometers of surface, located east of New Rome. They had an entire open park dedicated to them and roughly 7 warehouses. From afar, Ryan noticed the staff moving cardboard cutouts, interns carrying coffee to their superiors, and stuntmen prepping themselves. The studios only had one checkpoint entrance, and few guards. They clearly didn't expect an attack. Still, the group had parked outside the studio's confines, unable to find a path inside without security cameras in the way. Ki-young napped with her head against her boyfriend's shoulder, her eyes closed. While the group remained at safe distance from the studios, she had sent her rats to do scouting work. From what Ryan understood, Chitter's enhanced rat family acted as relays, allowing her to control a swarm of vermin over a large area. Ryan suspected that instead of true telepathy, which was a blue power, Chitter physically modified her rats into an extension of her own nervous system. On one hand, it meant destroying her main rats would cancel her power for a time, but on the other hand, her vermin familiars could act independently without her direct input. I mean, why would we risk ourselves fighting Wyvern, aka the dragon shapeshifter who can take on the boss? So Lanka pointed an accusing finger at Ryan, who made an offended pose, can earn himself a personal favor. Because Vulcan wants it, and she's one of the capos, Jamie replied, and with luck, we won't have to face her. I doubt she has time for actor work. What happens if you're wrong? None of us can take her on. Thing was, Ryan had a bad feeling too. He couldn't explain it, but the courier had developed a strong intuition over his various loops. And right now, his sixth sense warned him of danger, of someone watching him. Yet their current location should be a blind spot for the security cameras. He should install a radar in his car. A bit distraught, Ryan put on the radio and activated the special feature, hoping to find good old-school music to drown out the noise. In other news, the Roman Republic is still under curfew, after Gaius Julius Caesar's assassination. Again with Caesar? It had been 2,000 years. What news channel is that? Jamie asked, curious. I don't recognize the speaker. It's my chrono radio, Ryan explained, changing the channel. It listens to channels across space and time. But for some reason, it usually defaults to the Roman Republic era. You should work on your stories, blabbermouth, Lanka taunted him. They didn't have radios 2,000 years ago. In one version of the past, they did. You can't have multiple versions of the past. Ryan looked at her with a deadpan look. It was wasted effort with his mask on, but still. That's not how time works, he said, with the same tone as an adult talking to a petulant child. Fuck you, Einstein. Whenever you want, Ryan replied, before finally finding the post-apocalyptic blues channel. Ki-young chose this moment to wake up. So? Jamie asked her. Wyvern isn't present, she said, scratching her neck. Someone's filling in for her. See, I knew she didn't do her own stunts, Jamie told Lanka, vindicated. She's probably too busy with field work. There's no guarantee she won't fly in after somebody calls the alarm, she replied, opening the window and lighting a cigarette. The bad news, however, is that wardrobe replaces her for the stunts, Ki-young continued, and Adam Cat is there too. Jamie didn't sound concerned about wardrobe, but instantly bristled when she mentioned the other genome. Wardrobe gains power based on her costume, right? Ryan asked, trying to stir up his memory. If she dresses as a vampire, she drinks blood and burns in the sun. If she dresses as Wyvern, then she can fly. Ki-young nodded. It's a very weak version of the real thing, so even if she dresses like Augustus you can still hurt her. and the effect lasts only as long as her clothes are relatively intact. Yellow genomes are bullshit, Lanka complained. I can understand wardrobe's presence, but Adam Cat? Jamie asked his girlfriend. He's doing a guest appearance in the movie, she replied, showing concern. Do we abort? Abort? Ryan turned his head around. Why abort? He's that powerful? Adam Cat was one of us, Jamie said. He's a spy? Ryan asked. Like James Bond? No. It's complicated. Jamie joined his fingers, trying to find the right words. He's having a teenage rebellion phase, but he'll come back into the fold, eventually. His parents are part of Augustus' inner circle, and we've been explicitly forbidden from endangering him in any way. Don't let him touch you, Blabbermouth, Lanka said, or you go boom. He can transform anything into a bomb, but only with direct skin contact, Ki-young added. Interesting, Ryan lied, before asking the really important question to Ki-young. CGI, special effects, or stop motion? They use CGI. The courier put his head on the steering wheel, mourning the loss of cinema's golden age. So what do we do? Lanka asked Jamie. We go in gun blazing, make a ruckus, and then bolt away? No, Jamie replied, turning to his girlfriend. Here's what we'll do. You flood the studios with rats from afar, make a ruckus, then we immediately drive away. Ryan immediately understood the obvious flaw in this plan. Wait, we don't fight anyone? No. Betrayal. Betrayal, the courier pointed a finger at Jamie. You can't do this to me. I won't let you get in a firefight with Adam Cat, quick save, Jamie replied. I'm sorry, but I don't want any trouble on that front. You ask too much, the courier said, his fellow genome sighing in defeat. You're killing me, Jamie. You're killing me. You'll live through it. The swordsman shrugged, before turning to Ki-young. So? I'm your girl, she said, falling asleep. Ryan turned to Lanka for support, but she simply looked out of the window, finishing her cigarette. He couldn't blame them since they weren't immortal, but damn, it sucked all the fun out of this mission. As minutes passed, Ryan noticed agitation near the studio. People getting out of the warehouses, screaming. Then they came crawling. Hordes of thousands of black and brown rats. They escaped from the warehouses, breaking windows under their sheer weight. There were so many of them, that the rodents had to climb on one another to advance, forming waves and walls of fur. Ryan almost felt pity for the poor Dynamis trainees, confronted with this terror while they toiled without any hope for a paycheck. Obviously, panic spread all around the area, the staff fleeing in all directions, coffee cups being spilled, guards desperately trying to shoot the rodents. My, Ryan whistled. This city has a rat problem. That should satisfy Vulcan, Jamie chuckled. Now, let's go home before the private security arrives. The courier couldn't agree more, especially since he still felt uneasy. Ryan pushed the accelerator pedal, abandoning the vermin-infested studio for the city's broad lanes. As he drove all the way to the group's shared house, he almost hoped for Wyvern to come from the skies, or Adam Cat to track them down on a motorcycle for an epic car chase. Or even the Meta to ambush them. Instead, they returned home without a problem. Frankly, New Rome's heroes disappointed the courier. Perhaps Leo Hargrave's carnival had given Ryan a false image of what superheroes should be, since they were brutally competent, but Dynami's corporate champions didn't impress him much. You're sulking, Blabbermouth? Lanka asked him, finishing her smoke and throwing it out of the window. Ryan stopped time, caught the smoke, and put it in an ashtray in the glove compartment. It's just, I expected a road bump of some kind, Ryan replied when time resumed. His gut may have been mistaken. This is boring. See the bright side, you will finally see your girlfriend again, Jamie tried to comfort him. What's she like? Ki-young asked. I will present her to you, Ryan said, much to her delight. He had to admit, he started to like this group. He wouldn't get too attached nor make the effort to know them better since they could forget him any time, but for professional criminals, they were quite nice to hang out with. Parking the car in front of the house, Ryan let the others climb down but didn't follow yet. I'll just listen to the radio for a bit, he replied. Can you call Vulcan? Sure, Jamie promised. Also, it's movie night. RoboCop or RoboCop 2? Ryan raised 2 fingers since he liked movies with stop motion, even if he had seen both films countless times already. He was busy trying to find the Jazz 60s channel on his chrono radio when Ki-young reached the house's door, exchanging pleasantries with Lanka. Except Ki-young suddenly stopped, as she was within an inch of the door handle. Ryan lowered his car window. What's up? I can't sense the rats I left at home, the rodent master replied, bothered. They scampered off? Jamie asked. His girlfriend shook her head. I explicitly told them to stay and watch the place. Now, Ryan wasn't the only one with a bad feeling. Lanka drew her gun, moving first with a frown on her face. Ki-young took a step back, while her female friend put a hand on the door handle, the other ready to shoot through it. Click. Ryan instantly stopped time when he heard that oh-so-familiar sound, but it was already too late. When the world turned purple, his power freezing everything in place, the house had already transformed into a giant burst of flames and debris. The inferno swallowed both Lanka and Ki-young whole and incinerated them instantly. The blast had somehow caused all his car's reinforced windows to explode into sharp shards and triggered its alarm. Ignoring the glass shards grazing his skin, Ryan emerged from his car and rushed at Jamie's side, making a futile attempt to rescue him. When time resumed, he received a mouthful of dust, ashes, and stones for his trouble, the entire house having been vaporized. Jamie, thanks to his armor, was more shocked than hurt physically. Emotionally though. Ki-young. The swordsman rushed to his girlfriend's side, but even with her genome durability, the blast had killed the young woman instantly. Her flesh had been seared so much, her eyes had fried and one could see the bones. Damn, Ryan said upon observing the corpses, before glancing around to look for the responsible. No one in sight, although he couldn't distinguish things clearly through the smoke. I didn't expect that at home. Ki-young, Jamie muttered while holding his girlfriend in his arms, his horrified eyes then wandering to Lanka's body. He then turned to Ryan, panic overtaking him. We have to go to the hospital. It's useless, Ryan replied, having studied medicine enough to know they lacked either the tools or the time to make a difference. They're dead. You can't do anything. For the first time since he met him, Jamie looked at Ryan with a new emotion, pure, undiluted fury. That's all you have to say? He asked venomously. They're dead? Thing was, Ryan had seen so many people die, that he had grown numb to it. He cared on an intellectual level, but since he could still rewind time and avert this attack, the destruction carried no emotional weight. The courier liked both girls and would make sure they survived next time, but he didn't see the point of being sad now. He would rather gather as much information as possible to make sure he prevailed in the future. Ryan would have loved to say he had become a creature of logic, but apathy would have been a better word. Still, Jamie's incensed, distraught expression saddened the courier enough to make an effort. After all, the swordsman had tried to help him with his own lingering sadness. It's okay, I can bring them back, Ryan promised. I can. The courier noticed movement at the edge of his vision and turned around. The glass shards from his car flew at him like thrown knives. Worse, Jamie's armor suddenly seemed to suffer from a short circuit, a surge of lightning electrocuting him. The swordsman Genome let out a scream of pain as the sheer voltage fried his flesh and forced him to release Kyung's corpse. Shit, the killer was still nearby. Ryan stopped time to dodge the knives. He looked around to locate for the source of the attack, but no one was in sight. Was the attacker invisible again? He never had the time to confirm it, no pun intended. The moment time resumed, the courier felt a sharp pain in his neck. His vision turned upside down, his entire body below the throat going numb as his ear hit the grass. Glass shards swirled above him like a tornado, shredding Jamie alive before he could recover from his own armor's incapacitation. Was that Ryan's headless body at his side? The beheaded courier could only widen his eyes, before all the glass shards fell on his skull like a rain of swords. Ryan woke up at his Plymouth's driver wheel, back to the beginning. Instead of moving directly to Renesco's place, the Genome parked his car near the city's entrance, staying still as he gathered his thoughts. Twice, he snarled out loud. He had been had twice when he was so close to finding happiness. Okay, now, that settled it. Someone was after him. Someone bold enough to attack while he had a whole group of Genomes at his back. But who? Ryan was flattered to have a secret archenemy, but he didn't see anyone with the means and motives except the Meta. Or did the assassin target him on principle due to joining the Augusti? Was it a lone wolf? This person seemed like a professional, and you would need a mighty bomb to cause an explosion that powerful. Ryan dying right after he stopped time implied that the killer had figured out his cooldown period, and Chitter's rodents had been killed to prevent them from warning their master. That must have involved a lot of information gathering, perhaps even a whole crew. The way it happened, the one responsible could clearly control glass. Since they could fry the technological components of Jamie's armor, perhaps even a silica kinetic. It could also explain the presumed invisibility as an optical illusion, or some kind of mirror suit. The attack had been brutal, unexpected, and lasted less than 5 minutes. The killer was no inexperienced would-be hero like the panda, but a cold-blooded professional. The courier considered what to do next. Thing was, even if he succeeded on the mission Vulcan gave him and avoided the ambush at the house, continuing without dealing with the assassin might lead them directly to Len. Although it infuriated him, Ryan decided to put his main quest on hold until he had dealt with that roadblock. That mysterious killer had already murdered him twice without ever showing up directly and clearly couldn't care less about collateral damage. Worse, if the killer wasn't a lone wolf but an agent of someone else, then killing them would only win Ryan a reprieve. The meaning of life was finding happiness. Ryan didn't feel happy without Len. Intentionally or not, this killer kept them apart, and so had to go. The end. He didn't want Jamie and his friends to die either. The courier took no pleasure in the suffering of others, notwithstanding assholes like Ghoul. His perfect run would involve everyone he liked being happy, and Jamie's group was now part of that VIP category. He wouldn't let them die. Ryan considered the matter with cold logic, to see how he could solve the problem in this new loop. So far, the killer had only attacked the Augusti or the courier himself, but that may be because Ryan worked with the criminal syndicate. Excluding the lone wolf hypothesis, only 2 organizations had the genomes, motives, and resources to attack them, the Meta and Dynamis. If it was the Meta, well, Ryan had already promised to wipe them out, so it would be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But his gut told him he had missed a detail, and he quickly remembered what. The harbor. Ryan remembered a flyer rescuing members of the private security when he had fought Ghoul and Saren there. He thought he couldn't see them clearly due to the darkness, but maybe it was because they were invisible, their presence only revealed by the smoke. Since the figure hadn't helped the Meta but did rescue Dynami's employees, Ryan excluded the former as the guilty party. This left only a lone vigilante, or an agent of Dynami's. Time to take up Wyvern on her offer. 12. corporate heroes. Il Miglior's HQ, the Optimate's Tower, was the most luxurious place Ryan had ever seen. Most of Dynami's properties were located northeast of the city, on the far opposite of Rust Town. Unlike its neighbor though, this district catered to the supreme elite of New Rome. Il Miglior's tower was a 70-floor tall building, half penthouse skyscraper, half luxury hotel. The lower portion was bulkier than the top, housing gardens, pool balconies, and even helipad areas, while the upper floors belonged to offices. The building clearly took cues after the Art Deco movement, with its mix of luxurious, shiny splendor and modern geometric design. Ryan himself had a meeting on floor 63, sitting in an expansively decorated waiting room. A 30-something secretary worked behind a desk on her computer, while another familiar face waited in another chair, near an office's closed doors. Through the room's window, Ryan could see the actual Dynami's HQ nearby, a reinforced glass spire that oversaw the entire city. Even the Il Miglior building couldn't hold a candle to it in size, lacking at least 20 floors compared to its big brother. How fitting that the company's fortress overlooked both New Rome and its superheroes' base. On a closer look though, Dynami's HQ reminded Ryan of those futuristic arcology designs, buildings meant to be entirely self-sufficient. He noticed a few greenhouses and gardens on some of the floors, even water reservoirs. However, past a certain point, something in the glass composition prevented the genome from seeing through it. How suspicious. Unlike downtown, both buildings were protected by the elite units of the private security, people in white armor with laser cannons implanted in the right arm and state-of-the-art weaponry. Unlike their lesser cousins, they were a true military force, well-trained, and ferociously loyal to Dynami's interests. He had heard that they didn't even accept bribes. "Excuse me." Having been restless for an hour, Ryan turned to the other person waiting for an appointment. "Are you the panda?" The poor man-bear looked up at him with hope. Compared to the previous loop, the would-be hero seemed less bombastic and more subdued. "You know me?" "Of course I know you. You're the panda. The very last of them," Ryan said, pumping his fist for added effect. "When I see you riding your bicycle of justice, I always get goosebumps." "Thanks," the hero replied, suddenly a lot more cheerful. He must be glad to have at least one fan in the world. "I'm really trying to live up to my panda legacy, and make them trendy again. But what is a solo hero doing here, in this bastion of corporate superheroism?" The panda struggles on his own," he admitted. "I'm really trying to make a name as a solo hero, but it's hard. None of the villains even want to fight me in public, because I'm simply too powerful for them." "I'm sure you are," Ryan replied with heavy sarcasm, which the panda completely missed. "It's so frustrating," he said. "I can't make it to the news without some big awesome duel, you know? Really, with great power comes great isolation." He sounded like he believed it too. "Mr. Romano?" Ryan's head perked up, as the secretary called his name. "Mr. Monada will receive you." "Finally." "Good luck with the interview," the panda told Ryan, as the courier moved towards the office's doors. "What's your name?" "Quick save." Ryan replied with a thumb up. "I'm immortal, but don't tell anyone." "I won't." The secretary let Ryan through the doors and then closed them behind. The courier waltzed inside an office as big as a house, but whose space was mostly occupied by flowers. Geraniums, roses bushes, chrysanthemums, muguet, dozens of various species of plants were on display. The office even included a miniature Japanese pond, with golden carp swimming in the waters. A tall, slender man waited for the courier behind a mahogany desk positioned to give the occupant a spectacular view of New Rome through a full window. If he wasn't the supreme authority of a superhero team, Ryan would have mistaken his host for a supervillain. The man wore an expensive tuxedo suit with a black rose on the left side, carried white gloves, and hid his face behind some kind of stylized white helmet reminding Ryan of the pre-war Daft Punk electronic band. The courier could only applaud his fashion style. "I am Enrique Manada, the chief brand officer at Dynamis and head manager of the Il Migliore program." The man shook Ryan's hand, his voice pleasant to hear yet firm. He smelled like roses, probably perfume. "You may also call me Blackthorn." "I don't see any thorns on your cost," Ryan gasped, as he noticed the matter making up the suit. "Wait, is that cashmere?" "You have a sharp eye," Enrique mused, showing Ryan a wooden chair and inviting him to sit down. "We have our own production program at Dynamis since we cannot import it from Asia. The production cost is horrendous, but you cannot put a price on elegance." While sitting, Ryan barely paid attention to the man, his eyes fixed on his clothes. He wanted a suit like that too. "We have no shortage of volunteers wishing to join our superhero teams," Enrique said, joining his fingers. "But few make it to my office. I believe in personal recommendations, Mr. Romano. If Wyvern hadn't vouched for you, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Ryan briefly wondered who had recommended the panda of all people, deeming the mystery as important as tracking down his assassin. "She seems to have a good feeling about you, especially after you forewarned her about our latest prisoner. Which makes me wonder how you knew about Ghoul's escape attempt." "Just a gut feeling," Ryan replied innocently. "I don't believe you," Enrique replied, going straight for the jugular. "We have been having trouble with the private security lately, and several members tasked with escorting Ghoul actively tried to help him run away. If you know of any security breach, I would be thankful for sharing the information." Well, Ryan had come looking for information too, so it was all good. The fact the Meta had inside men among the private security bothered him though. It didn't surprise him that they would bribe locals to look the other way, but this gang seemed a lot more organized than most psycho warbands. He would look into it. "In any case, I must thank you for coming here. I am certain our competition made you an offer, knowing Vulcan's rivalry with Wyvern, and your trust in us won't go unrewarded." Enrique observed Ryan closely. "Why do you wish to join Il Migliore?" "Ever since I was young, I always wanted to become an ad." "An ad?" "Like Mr. Clean and Felix the cat. A recognizable icon of consumerism, with my face plastered on every cereal box." Enrique replied, seemingly seriously. "To transcend the human condition and become a packaged product. That has always been my dream." Enrique nodded, "And the real reason?" Ryan shrugged. "Greed? Your psychological profile tells me otherwise." They even had a psychological profile? Poor boys, Ryan wondered how many people had gone mad compiling it. All right, I thought it would be fun to try being a superhero, and I promised someone that I would kick the Meta out of the city as a personal favor. Business and pleasure. The Meta gang is a problem, Enrique conceded, although not as much as the Augusti. "Who is this person you owe a favor to?" "Some guy in Rust Town named Polly. He probably won't even remember me though." "I'm certain there is an interesting story behind this," the corporate mastermind mused. "I will put my cards on the table, Mr. Romano. I feel conflicted about your case. You have an incredible power, with a very high development potential according to our research team. Your skills with weapons are impressive, as the security checkup can attest to. I didn't even know one could fit so many miniaturized weapons in a kid's plushie, even if I don't see the point." "They will never see it coming," Ryan explained. "Which brings me to the matter at hand," Enrique presented Ryan with a small pile of paper. "The 16 pages long index of collateral damage complaints associated with your name, from people all over Italy." Something bothered Ryan greatly. "Only 16 pages? You expected more, perhaps? Hell yes, I did, Ryan replied. I guess I'm too good at silencing witnesses. The corporate genome remained completely unfazed. +18 demographic then, he said. Loose cannons have no place at Dynamis. If we sign a work contract together, foolhardy behavior will not be tolerated. Hey, I always fulfill commands to the letter, Ryan defended himself, wounded in his honor. It's not my fault if everyone leaves the methods open for interpretation. I will not. However, I need more guarantees. While no one ever accused you of betraying a contract, you have a mercenary past and a suspicious link to a certain criminal genius. He offered Ryan a photo, and the courier's heart skipped a beat. That was her, in a mugshot. She had aged a few years and had a black eye in the picture, but it was her, holding a paper with a number while glaring at the photographer. Len, underdiver, Sabino. Ryan could sense Blackthorn's eyes examine his face, looking for any sign of weakness. Daughter of Freddie Sabino, alias Bloodstream. An extremely dangerous psycho who almost rivaled Big Adam and Augustus in infamy, until his demise 4 years ago against Leo Hargrave's carnival. Many witnesses said he traveled alongside his daughter and an unidentified teenage boy, whose body was never recovered. All right, let's cut the bullshit, Greenhand, Ryan said, completely serious and putting the photo in his coat. Where is she? In a place out of your reach, for now. I've had my eyes on her for a time. Her arrest was my brother, the vice president's, doing, and a missed opportunity for recruitment. He believes in harsh measures, I believe in rehabilitation. The public loves redemption stories. If I behave, you will lead me to Len, while hoping that my presence will make her join your group. Definitively an evil mastermind. Now we are getting somewhere, Enrique replied. It will be much better for us if you told me the truth, Mr. Romano. How much is she worth to you? Everything. Perfect. Here's my offer then, you sign a 5-year contract with Il Migliore, help us clean New Rome of the filth that infests it, promote Dynami's brand, and most importantly, you behave. In exchange, we offer you a clean slate, generous accommodations, and the opportunity to reunite with Miss Sabino. He handed Ryan a contract far heavier than the collateral damage complaints, but the courier didn't even pay it any attention. That deal sounded a lot like Vulcan's, minus the personal vendetta bit. What do you want out of this, Greenhand? Most people think my family is only interested in profit, Enrique said, but what we really want is to rebuild Italian society into a prosperous nation. A dream that unfortunately cannot come to pass while groups like the Meta, the Augusti, and Marauders run rampant. A proud nation under copyright, eh? We also wish to democratize superpowers by reverse engineering and mass-producing elixirs, Enrique replied, ignoring the jab. As per your contract, you will be subjected to a full DNA-based test. This will ensure the private securities drones can track you should you default on your contractual obligations. You will also be asked to participate in our elixir research development program. We have few violet genomes like you under our employ. He should have known they wouldn't want him just for his pretty face. You won't succeed in replicating my power. We have made great progress on replicating powers, even created fully functional knockoff elixirs. You won't be able to reproduce my power, Ryan repeated himself. I've tried, more times than you can count. Good, then you can share your findings with the research division, Enrique dismissed his words. As for hero work, we divide the Il Migliore franchise into 2 very different branches, the Pro League, for established icons like Wyvern, and the Little League, for juniors and less-known superheroes. Obviously, you will start with our secondary division. Ryan listened as Enrique explained to him the rules inside the organization, mostly corporate blabbering, before grabbing the contract and skimming it. While the possibility to meet Len was tempting as always, the courier mostly wanted to identify the assassin during this loop. Access to Dynami's buildings and databases would help a great deal. If the company could introduce him to Len quickly, then all was good. If they delayed too long, he would simply take the information and return to the Augusti path. Something caught his attention. Only 30% royalties on merchandising? Ryan asked. That's theft. We will also change your name, Enrique said. QuickSave is not punchy enough for our marketing department, and video games are a very niche market nowadays. How about Time Lord? PR says it will catch on quickly, especially with teenagers. A soulless name developed to please hordes of monsters. Why did Ryan feel like he had made a deal with Satan? 13. Batman and Robin. Hell existed, and it was a corporate seminar. Ryan had thought his first day on the job as a Little League member would involve superhero training, maybe a routine patrol with Wyvern. Something practical. Instead, the courier received an assignment to a boring, weeks-long corporate internship. He simply had to look at the days planning to wish for a restart. Coffee breakfast, first meeting, with half an hour delay because of the aforementioned coffee break, then lunch, then second meeting, then the real lunch, then the second coffee break, third meeting, afternoon lunch, coffee break, then corporate videos. All before 6 in the afternoon, after which Ryan could either leave or participate in after-hour drink networking. So far these meetings consisted of seminars about brand management, marketing guys brainstorming his new and improved branding, lawyer interviews where they discussed auxiliary rights, and now an education video about Dynami's company culture. In short, no superhero work at all. Ryan wasn't the only recruit there, but much to his surprise, most of them seemed to enjoy these boring, mindless activities. They were more eager to discuss their image and royalties than actual fieldwork. This place drained the courier of his soul. He could feel it. With a bored sigh, Ryan reached the room where he was supposed to watch the new corporate video, putting his hand on a door scanner. Dynamis had extracted a drop of his blood soon after he signed their contract, which allowed the company to somehow track and identify him. Biosignature, Time Lord. Ryan groaned at the generic name while the door opened. Couldn't they have picked something more unique like Clockomancer, or Clockblocker? The courier walked into a darkened, informal conference room wide enough to welcome dozens upon dozens of people, with Mesoamerican drawings on creamy walls. Dynamis favored an informal, comfortable style, replacing plastic chairs with cotton armchairs and sofas. The Little League new recruits were gathered in front of a giant screen alongside the PR staff, exchanging pleasantries while consuming Dynamis-made energy drinks. Most seemed aged between 15 and their mid-20s, wearing colorful costumes designed by the marketing department. From what Ryan heard, they were currently discussing the latest fashion trends, who dated who among Il Miglior's Pro League, and how they got introduced to Enrique Monada in the first place. The panda wasn't among these brats. Which was an injustice of the highest order, since he would have fit in perfectly. Ryan noticed a lone wolf at the back, who preferred to examine photos and paper reports on a luxurious sofa than looking at the screen. This man wore a white cat-shaped mask covering the upper part of his face, showcasing his smooth pale skin, blue eyes, and combed blonde hair, a true Adonis. All in all, he seemed around 18, wearing a pink and white sleeveless gymnast suit. The D-shaped symbol flashed on the screen, alongside colorful music. The image of an elderly Latino man with graying hair, a macho mustache, and a rather large belly appeared at the forefront, with a picture of New Rome in the background. He reminded Ryan of an older picture of Pablo Escobar, down to the casual outfit and friendly smile hiding the teeth beneath. Hi, I'm Hector Monada, CEO and founder of Dynamis. As a new employee, I welcome you into the D family. You have been chosen because of your skills and character to become part of something greater. For we at Dynamis and its subsidiaries, we are more than a corporate conglomerate. 33 years ago, from the moment I established this company, our guiding principle has always been the same: what should the world look like? Ryan knew a lot about Dynami's official history, mostly because they advertised it constantly. A 26-year-old Hector Manada created the pharmaceutical company in Spain long before the Genome Wars, expanding its domains to shipping, warehouses, agriculture, food, biotech, manufacturing, oil, retail, and pretty much everything else. Ironically, they had just transferred their HQ to Italy to get closer to their burgeoning shipping activities the year before Mecrin bombed everyone. This stroke of luck saved most of their leadership when the old world collapsed, and since Dynamis had a finger in every pie all over Western Europe before the Genome Wars, it had the resources needed to thrive once the dust settled. Since Spain had suffered a lot more than Italy from Genome's depredations, Dynamis had transferred most of its remaining infrastructure away from their homeland, founding New Rome as their personal stronghold. Through their mergers with other corporations and subsidiaries, they controlled Corsica, Sardinia, Majorca, the south of Spain, western Italy, the oil fields of Libya, and currently contested Sicily to local Genome warlords. In short, Dynami's board was well on their way to become the face of post-Genome Europe, if Augustus didn't beat them to it. Ryan decided to move at the back alongside the lone wolf, since it was the closest to the door. He intended to leave as soon as the video ended. Sitting at the back, he tried to listen to the video for 10 seconds, before getting bored and checking stuff on his phone. "Is there Wi-Fi here?" Ryan asked his neighbor. "I see a Dynamite Wi-Fi, but it's password protected." "You see the Wi-Fi box here?" Blondie pointed at a device in a corner of the room. "The password is written." Ryan stopped time before he could finish his sentence. Moving as quickly as a snake, he searched inside his coat for a mini tracker, quickly opened the wireless box's back, swiftly put the tracker inside, and then closed the device. On the back, the man finished, Ryan having returned to his original spot with nobody noticing. "It's incredibly long and case-sensitive though. Took me 5 tries to get it right." The courier feigned a groan of laziness, his eyes still on his phone. The tracker had already activated, sending him information. Ryan had placed similar devices all over the floor during the day, which should grant him a way inside Dynami's systems. The courier needed a quick scan for vulnerabilities which he could exploit in future loops to get inside, and didn't particularly care if he was identified afterward. If anything, Ryan considered committing suicide and find a way to skip this internship phase entirely. He was a creature of fun, and the staff here seemed determined to drain him of every drop of life. Putting his phone back in his pocket and having consumed enough Dynami's content for a lifetime, Ryan didn't pay attention to the video. Instead, his curious eyes wandered to his neighbor, who seemed to share his disinterest. As it turned out, Blondie was busy looking at photos of the Meta Gang. Ryan immediately recognizing pictures of Saren and Ghoul, alongside that of a large, horrifically obese bald man with menswear straight out of the 50s. His scarred face and prominent teeth reminded Ryan of a hippo. Blondie noticed Ryan's curiosity and felt the urge to give details. "Adam, the Meta's big bad boss." "I could tell from the paunch," Ryan replied, approaching to get a better look at the photos. "He's somewhere in the city, but nobody knows his exact location," Blondie mumbled, his voice rising with frustration. The recruits closest to them looked over their shoulders, before focusing back on the video. Too much counter-surveillance, no electronic trail, and he contacts his men, not the other way around. The only people who might know are his lieutenants, Psyshock, Acid Rain, Frank the Mad. Ryan decided to make the Meta one of his main priorities for this restart. These psychos were far too organized and well-behaved. For years ago, Adam could barely keep his junkies in check, and never without a healthy dose of family-unfriendly violence. "My, they have grown very large over the years," the courier mused, as he examined the file closely. According to Dynami's information, the Meta Gang now included around 50 members. I still remember when they could barely fill a minibus. This caught Blondie's interest. You met the Meta before? 4 years ago, Ryan replied. It was just Adam, Psyshock, and a few hanger-ons back then. They didn't differ much from a normal psychopath, except the fondness for ultraviolence and medieval execution methods. Anything you can tell me about them? Blondie whispered, making it hard for Ryan to listen to the video's sound. Their tactics, their organization, their weaknesses? If you want the full story, my feline friend, Psyshock, tried to convince a member of my old group to join them. It didn't go well, and it ended in a bloodbath. Typical psychos. Oh, and Psyshock is a sadistic creep who can hijack your nervous system with his wires if he catches you. Telepaths were some of the few genomes with the ability to do Ryan lasting damage, by tampering with his memories or destroying his personality. He avoided them like the plague whenever he could. Psyshock though, the courier might seek out and beat up on principle. He needs physical contact? Blondie asked, scribbling the information on a paper sheet. Good to know. Does he need to maintain physical contact too? Yep, but the disconnection is incredibly painful for the victim, Ryan explained while putting his legs on the sofa, taking as much space as humanly possible. So my feline friend, are you planning a mutant mice hunt? I wish, he grumbled, his eyes wandering to the video. I asked Enrique if I could follow Pro League members on patrols, and instead I must guest star in their new movie. He said it would introduce me to the public better than any action in the field. Since when do you need authorization to start trouble? Ryan asked mirthfully. What's the point of being a hero if you can't legally sublimate your violent urges and receive acclaim for it? It seemed to amuse him. Hey, by the way, I haven't introduced myself, Ryan shook his hand. I'm Quick Save. I'm immortal, but don't tell anyone. Adam Cat, he replied. I can blow stuff up on touch. Oh, the mafia boy? The handshake turned into an iron grip. How do you know that? He hissed. Are you a spy? Enrique told you? That bastard, I should never have listened. Hey! The video paused, and everyone looked at the duo with angry gazes, while Ryan remained unfazed. Adam Cat bristled a bit. Nothing like a shared embarrassment to start a new friendship. A marketing guy in a suit and tie looked at the duo, letting the awkward silence set in. Are you not interested, he began, the frozen face of Hector Monada behind him, in the company where you will work for the next 5 years? I am interested, sir, Adam Cat lied through his teeth. It won't happen again, sir. Absolutely not, Ryan replied bluntly, but please continue, we'll be as quiet and dutiful as unpaid interns. The marketing guy glared at the courier, imitated by the other recruits. It was kindergarten all over again. If you make another comment like that, Time Lord, I will ask you to politely leave the room without a word. The new name hurt, physically. Wait, they could leave early? When the marketing guy received no answer, he put back the video on. Adam Cat waited for everyone to lose interest in them, before whispering into Ryan's ear. If you don't answer, I'm blowing you up. Same if I let go of your hand unwillingly. Can you keep a secret? Ryan looked around as if they were being spied on, and then approached Adam Cat's ear to whisper back into it. I come back from the future. I used a DeLorean. Your references are quite outdated, Adam Cat replied. His grip grew tighter, and the courier felt his skin heat up. What do you know? That we are close enough to kiss, Ryan replied, his free hand shifting to grab a weapon. That your parents are Augusti Capos, that you joined the other team out of teenage rebellion, and that you should rethink having children. Adam Cat looked down, noticing the hidden knife very close to his manly parts. Thankfully, nobody had noticed, their eyes focusing on the screen. My power will be faster, he replied. And I'm very good at neutering cats, kitty. At least a spy would have been subtler, Adam Cat mused, his eyes squinting behind the mask. So you don't know who my parents are? Their actual identity? The courier rolled his shoulders. Adam Cat looked at the other recruits, and spoke only when certain they didn't listen, with a voice so low the courier could barely hear it. They're Mars and Venus. Ryan gasped in shock. You're Cupid? But where are the wings and bow? Adam Cat marked a short pause. Not the mythological gods, you idiot, he said, finally releasing Ryan's hand. It takes some kind of elitist narcissism to name yourself after deities. As if you stood above normal people, like mice and men. I heard there was a genome who tried to use the name Little Jesus once, the courier replied, putting back the knife up his sleeve. He didn't last long. Augustus fried him alive, Adam Cat replied, relaxing a bit. You're not an Auguste? No, you wouldn't have risked a DNA scan otherwise. They've been sending people asking me to come back into the fold a lot lately. And why did you leave it in the first place? Ryan asked, crossing his legs and faking interest in the video when the marketing guy looked at him. Now it showed Hector with children before a school sponsored by Dynamis, the poor kid struggling to smile at the camera. If you knew half the things they do, you'd understand, Adam Cat replied angrily. Their bliss drug kills thousands each year, their weapons slay more, and that's what makes it to the news. The kidnappings, the murders, the racketeering, and the prostitution. After a while, I just couldn't take it anymore. I thought I could make a difference at Il Migliore. Did you? Not yet, he grumbled. The Monada and Augustus have been at each other's throat for years, so I thought they had plans to take him down, but apparently, Dynami's motto is, don't rock the boat. Enrique seemed quite motivated when I met him, Ryan pointed out. He and his brother Alphonse, yes, but their father, Adam Cat, glared at Hector's image. Don't rock the boat. Ryan tried his best to watch the video for 30 more seconds and quickly realized he would go mad if this continued. Okay, he said, crawling on the sofa closer to the door, I'm out. Where are you going? Adam Cat asked, curious. To Rust Town, to beat up the meta. The would-be superhero appraised Ryan's words for a long, long minute. You want to go to their new territory and, what, pick a fight with the first psycho you meet? You make it sound so complicated. Dynamis will cut your salary if you do that, Adam Cat replied weakly. Maybe even fire you. Ryan considered the statement thoughtfully, remembered that he had more money stashed away than he would earn at Il Migliore, then shrugged it off. He was confident he would learn more about Dynami's activities by hacking them than by following a week-long seminar. Your nickname is Quick Save, Adam Cat mumbled the name, finally remembering where he had heard it. Wait, didn't you beat up Ghoul with a golf club? I had to buy one just for that occasion, and I almost didn't make it in time. Still, I improved my short game by quite a lot. Ryan rose up from the sofa, looking casual and ignoring the marketing guy glaring at him. Now, are you coming or not? Adam Cat looked at Ryan, then at the video, and noticed it still had 57 minutes left before its conclusion. The young hero immediately rose up from the sofa, gathered the photos and reports, before following the courier towards the door. Time Lord, Adam Cat, the video is not over yet, the marketing guy said, trying to sound firm and failing utterly. I'm escorting him out of the building to make sure he never returns, sir, Adam Cat promised. Apparently, in spite of his spiel, getting rid of the courier made the marketing guy a lot happier. Teacher's pet, Ryan accused Adam Cat, as he closed the door behind them. You have a car? The young superhero asked. I can only drive a motorcycle. I have the best of them, but before we go, Ryan cleared his throat, do you know where they make cashmere suits? Floor 20 of the Dynamis HQ, right next to this building, Adam Cat replied, clearly well informed. Why the question? Because I will get a cashmere suit, even if I have to fight for it. 14. Field work. No matter how many times he would visit it, Ryan would never get used to Rust Town. The whole place reeked of misery and despair. Adam Cat seemed to share his sentiment, as both drove through the slums with the Plymouth's windows closed and the air cleaner on. It's even worse than I thought, he said, looking at a streetlight hanging by its cable, threatening to fall on the road at any moment. Way worse. You never went mice hunting here? No, my family lives in the wealthy patrician district. I lived a very sheltered life, truth be told, even during the wars. So a house cat then? If so, Ryan's threat of neutering him must have hit a bit too close to home. I guess I went stray, his sidekick mused. I do wonder why this place is such a dump compared to the rest of the city though, Ryan said. It reminded him of the bad old days when he scoured ruins for supplies, with bloodstream breathing down his neck. It belonged to the region's original inhabitants, Adam Cat explained, those who lived in the Gulf of Naples and escaped its bombing. They managed to survive, in spite of the poisons and plagues, but when Dynamis took over the region, the company forcefully relocated them to make room for its own people. I guess the homeless and the diseased didn't fit into their picture of a shining capital city. There are plans to renovate the area, but they haven't materialized yet. He shook his head in disappointment, the sound of a cell phone's alarm interrupting the discussion. Adam Cat looked at his mobile, but didn't take the call. Ryan glanced at the screen, seeing Adam Cat had missed 15 calls from a certain Fortuna and 7 from one Narcinia. My sisters, the superhero said before the courier could ask questions. I keep in touch with them, but they want me back and don't take no for an answer. That means they love you, Ryan replied without any hint of sarcasm. He could sympathize with people wishing to reunite with their family. The courier did wonder what made Adam Cat consider Dynamis to be a better option over the Augusti though. Ryan suddenly wondered if Len, like Adam Cat, wouldn't want to meet him, but immediately brushed off these thoughts. Of course she would rejoice when they met again, after so many years. It was just his anxiety talking. I love them too, but as long as they keep supporting the Bliss business Another person called Adam Cat, who stared at the name on the screen for several seconds, his gaze undecipherable. Livia. Instead of ignoring the call like the others, Adam Cat outright turned down his phone, sighed, and messed with the radio to change his mind. When he finally settled on a channel, Ryan glared at his sidekick. Hip-hop, really? You don't like it, brother? No, I don't. Ryan changed the channel back to the Daft Biopunk Chrono radio. The music switched into a combination of electronic, synth, and alien rhythms. Nice sound, Adam Cat commented, as they passed through narrow streets. Where are we going? The Meta took over the junkyard area as their base, Ryan said. It's located at Rust Town's center. I'm stopping you right here. I'm all for ambushing a lone psycho, maybe two, but attacking their home turf with only the two of us is suicide. If Ryan had been alone, he would have tried anyway, but he wasn't going to lead his sidekick to certain death. Thing is, children have been missing in the area, according to my information. I've located an orphanage south of the junkyard, and I thought we should check it out. Adam Cat instantly tensed. Children? You're surprised? Ryan asked. The courier would love to say he was, but he had come to expect the worst when psychos were involved. I'm surprised it didn't get reported, the superhero replied, the Plymouth passing near the city's water reservoir. Unlike the rest of the neighborhood, Dynamis heavily protected the area, armored soldiers protecting its confines. Then again, nobody cares about this place. Ryan did. Eventually, the duo made their way to an isolated building surrounded by a dusty wasteland. The paint on the cinder block walls had vanished, peeled by time, and half the windows were broken. A large fenced area extended left of the building, housing dozens, if not hundreds of stray cats and dogs. The distressed noises they made and the smell they produced immediately overwhelmed the duo, as they parked the car nearby and stepped out of it. "That's not an orphanage," Adam Cat said with horror, while Ryan grabbed his fisty gauntlets and put them on. The air here was less polluted than the rest of Rust Town, but not by much. "It's an animal shelter." "It's both," Ryan realized, glancing at the animals with sympathy. The sheer aura of trapped desperation they gave off made him feel sick inside. They found 2 children between 10 and 12 at the orphanage's entrance, playing with a dirty golden retriever near the open doors. One was a black boy with acid burn scars on half his cheek, the other a skinny brunette in a pink dress unfit for her size. "Hey, fellas." Ryan waved a hand at them. The little girl instantly raised a crappy revolver at his head, having hidden it beneath her dress, while the boy clung to the dog. "Back off, druggie," she told Ryan. "Or I'm blowing your head off."
Aww.
That was so cute. Ryan froze time, grabbed the gun, and replaced it with a rock pebble. When time resumed, he had put the gun inside his coat, much to the girl's surprise. But? "Hey, I'm quick save," Ryan said, raising his thumb like in a commercial. "I'm immortal, but don't tell anyone, and this is my trusty sidekick, Hello Kitty." "Don't push it, Quickie," Adam Cat replied, the nickname making Ryan feel dirty inside. "We aren't here to hurt anyone. Can we talk to the staff?" "There's no staff," the boy said, still afraid. The dog nuzzled his face to reassure him, and didn't make any hostile move towards the genomes. "Grandpa took care of us, but he's gone now," the little girl replied while glaring at Ryan. "A druggie shanked him in an alley months ago." She said it so casually, it sounded almost normal. "Wait, there's no adult?" The more he heard, the more Adam Cat grew agitated. "But, how do you survive?" "We can take care of ourselves," the girl said with a proud face. "We scavenge stuff up and take the trash. Mama sends up food and money every week." The little girl kicked the boy in the leg before he could finish his sentence. "Ouch, Sarah." "Mama?" Adam Cat asked. The little girl kept her mouth closed, the other boy imitating her. "Sarah, that's your name? Give me back my gun." She ignored Adam Cat and instead kept glaring at Ryan. "Give it back." "I can't in good conscience return such a crappy revolver," Ryan replied, having a reputation to uphold. "Let me buy you a real gun, like a Desert Eagle. Then you can credibly threaten people." "Quick save." Adam Cat chided him, before trying to build a rapport with the kids. "Who is this Mama, your caretaker? Can we talk to her?" "No," Sarah replied stubbornly. "She's busy." "Busy doing what?" "Busy," Sarah replied, crossing her arms. "What do you want?" As Adam Cat tried to argue with the kids that they only wanted to protect them, Ryan sensed tension in the air. The pets grew agitated, barking and meowing. They could sense predators nearby. A rusty, black minibus approached the orphanage, parking 5 meters away from the entrance. Other kids appeared at the windows, attracted by the pets' racket. 3 men stepped out of the car, although they barely counted as such. Ryan instantly recognized one of them as the mosquito monster that wrecked his Plymouth in a previous loop. The second was a scrawny, bald man dressed like a plumber. Disfiguring tumors grew out of his flesh and bloodshot eyes. He carried a rusty pipe wrench, and his smile showed rows of rotten fangs. As for the third, Ryan instantly recognized the tall and slender figure, in spite of his heavy black overcoat, hat, scarf, and sunglasses. The way he walked, like a shambling doll mimicking a man, the aura of quiet menace he gave off. Psyshock, Adam's second-in-command. The three psychos glanced at the group with menacing stares, Adam Cat instantly moving to shield the kids, so did the golden retriever, who barked at the newcomers with surprising ferocity. Psyshock himself focused entirely on Ryan. "My, isn't it little Cesare?" he said with a robotic, digital voice. "How you have grown." Ryan flinched. Surprised? Once I have connected to a nervous system, I can recognize its unique brainwave pattern anywhere. Like a lost signal, calling home to Daddy. His heavy sunglasses glittered under the twilight. "I thought the carnival killed your father." "He wasn't my father, and yes, they did," the courier said, cold and focused. He had last crossed path with that creep 4 years ago, before he drank his elixir. Even if Ryan now had superpowers and could defend himself, Psyshock's mere presence made him feel uneasy. "How are the scars he gave you, Lightbulb?" "They healed," Psyshock replied, his digital voice turned threatening. Mosquito readied his claw-like hands, itching for a fight. "If you survived, I assume little Len did too." "Good. I never got over missing the opportunity to extract her genius brain." "What, kids aren't enough for you?" Ryan taunted him. "I have no interest in this meat, but we require a unique service from these goblins. I'm afraid nothing short of pygmies will do the trick." "Don't worry, we'll take good care of them, even feed them." "Adam is very fond of children," Mosquito cackled, the other psycho letting out a bestial grunt. "That too," Psyshock mused with cruel amusement. "Kids, gather your friends, and get into the car quietly." "Behind me," Ryan said. "He's got candies."
Yeah.
"The kids aren't getting anywhere near you," Adam Cat said, turning to Sarah. "Do you have a basement?" She nodded slowly. "Go hide there, and don't come out until we say so." The noise of a plane echoed above the neighborhood, while the children and their dog fled inside the orphanage. "I would check your math if I were you," Psyshock said while trailing the children with his gaze. It made him look like a deadly wolf observing helpless fawns, much to Ryan's disgust. Wires shifted behind the psycho's scarf and sunglasses, and electricity came out of his gloves. "You're outnumbered, and outmatched." "Why weren't they attacking?" "Because they were worried they might kill the kids in the crossfire if they acted too early." "They shouldn't be thinking that far ahead, the sight of genomes being reason enough to try and drink the hero's elixir-laced blood." These psychos were too stable, too careful, as if. "You're well-fed," Ryan realized. "You have a supply of elixir." Psyshock appraised him for a few seconds, before barking orders. "Mongrel, Mosquito, capture little Cesare and kill the spare." "I hoped you'd say that," Mosquito said, Mongrel hissing at Adam Cat like an animal. "I guess Adam can't be mad at us for eating a few strays." Both groups glared at one another, but Ryan couldn't focus, the sound of the plane growing stronger and stronger. "Closer." Ryan barely had the time to raise his eyes, as it landed right in the middle of the Mexican standoff. The crash blew dust in all directions, Adam Cat taking a leap back on reflex and the psychos retreating behind their minibus for protection. Only Ryan remained still, unfazed, as an enormous, gold-plated robot stood right in front of him. "Quick save," Vulcan's voice echoed from hidden loudspeakers, the suit's camera eyes focusing on the courier. "You have denied my invitation." Ryan put his hands in his pockets and whistled, his mask protecting him from the dust. Adam Cat quickly got back on his feet, his eyes widening upon recognizing the newcomer. Vulcan's camera eyes briefly glanced at the hero, but quickly focused back on Ryan with murderous rage. "By going to that dragon whore without even considering my offer, you have done more than scorn me. You have insulted me, and for that, you will die." She towered above Ryan, a cannon pointed at his head. "Any last words?" Ryan gave serious thought to the question and then answered. You're so short, your mother has to use a microscope to see you. Vulcan remained completely still, the towering armor casting the courier in its oppressive shadow. Oh, I got a better one. Ryan snapped his fingers. You're so short that your feet always dangle when you sit on a chair. The silence grew even tenser, broken by strange noises. Ryan recognized them as guns and missiles being loaded. Psyshock and his cronies recovered from the surprise attack, moving to encircle everyone and flank Atom Cat from the sides. Tough crowd here. How about this one? You're almost tall enough for Wyvern to take you seriously. Vulcan let out a snarl and opened fire. 15, good karma. Ryan had been shot at more times than he could count. Unlike psychos or special cases like Augustus, all of the courier's abilities, from his save point to the time stop, derived from a single unifying power. It was only through training and experimentation that Ryan discovered its multiple applications. In particular, it took him years of looping to realize he had an enhanced sense of timing. The more he experienced a situation, the better Ryan became at predicting and reacting to it. If someone used a martial arts move once, he would subtly anticipate it next time anybody else tried it. The courier could predict when one would toss a smoke bomb to the ground, and catch it before being consciously aware of it. This made learning physical skills almost trivial. It wasn't all-powerful, since there were situations when even the fastest reflexes couldn't make a difference, like getting beheaded by an invisible blade or hit by a laser as fast as light. Lacking any super speed, Ryan couldn't truly dodge bullets or artillery. But he could predict someone's line of fire before they pressed the trigger. His body would then subtly shift, projectiles would miss, and give people the illusion that he could dodge even bullets. Combined with the time stop, the courier seemed impossible to hit from the point of view of outsiders. So when Vulcan attacked him with her cannon arm, Ryan paused time for a split second and dodged out of the line of fire. A dense shell blasted the orphanage's wall behind them, collapsing cinder blocks and opening a path towards what seemed to be a kitchen. The trapped pets behind the fence panicked, some frenzied cats managing to escape by climbing. Vulcan, it's an orphanage. Atom Cat shouted, but before he could rush to Ryan's help, the metagang flanked him. The hero avoided a deadly punch from Mosquito and a small fireball from Mongrel. Atom Cat's movements were chaotic, showcasing his lack of formal training, but his natural agility made up for it. To her credit, Vulcan froze for a split second, vaguely ashamed. Instead of assaulting Ryan with heavy artillery and risk destroying the shelter, she switched to hand-to-hand combat. Mini-turbo reactors activated on the mechanical suits back in short bursts, causing the 5-meter-tall metal monster to move at the speed of a racing car. Showing extreme agility honed over countless loops, Ryan backflipped to dodge a giant fist to the face, and then a stomp. I have to hand it to you, the courier began, before switching the meaning of his sentence, because you can't reach it. Vulcan's attacks grew more frenzied, and when she no longer had the orphanage in her line of fire, she switched to heavy weaponry. Her mech's shoulders opened to reveal minigun turrets, firing hundreds of pellets at Ryan. The courier used a mix of time stop and timing to avoid the attacks, trying to circle the machine and find a hatch for the cockpit. Psyshock, meanwhile, threw away his overcoat, hat, and sunglasses, revealing his true self to the world. He had long shed his flesh, replaced with thousands of black wires which he usually shaped into a facsimile of a humanoid form. The only organ that survived his mutation was his skull, which left his biomechanical brain exposed. His neon eyes reminded Ryan of two bright torchlights. Psyshock reshaped his wires to form 8 elongated arms, turning himself into a horrific mockery of a spider. While Vulcan occupied Ryan and Atom Cat fought his cronies, the Psycho leaped over the area in a single bound, going straight for the orphanage. Realizing this, Ryan decided to dump Vulcan and pursue Psyshock, but the genius didn't let him. Her hand lunged at the courier, big enough to crush him whole, while her miniguns provided suppressing fire. In spite of her fearsome armor, Ryan could tell that Vulcan didn't have much direct combat experience. Her movements were clumsy, and while her weapons aimed true, there was no foresight involved, no human cunning or improvisation. She probably outsourced control to a basic AI. Her armor was also clearly a prototype designed to fight a big and aerial target, instead of an agile and stylish gentleman. In short, Vulcan had brought a wyvern buster to a quick-save fight. Vulcan could have won if she had carpet-bombed the area from above, but instead, she chose to announce her presence and make the battle close and personal. Ryan could sense a desire to prove herself in a fight, perhaps to outshine Wyvern. Girls got issues. Stopping time for 10 seconds, Ryan moved to the armor's left, dodging her hand and bullets. Then, he carefully punched the elbow joint with fisty, aiming to maximize pressure damage. When time resumed, the recoil applied in full, and the mech's arm shattered at the elbow point. The forearm fell to the ground, electrical jolts coming out of the damaged parts. As he guessed when he first observed it at the armory, much like medieval armor, Vulcan paid for her suit's enhanced mobility with weakness in the joints. "What's this?" Ryan mused. "A short circuit?" "You aren't funny, Romano." Vulcan complained through her armor's loudspeakers, clearly jealous of his peerless wit. "You think you are, but you aren't. Come on, don't be small-minded." As she retaliated with another volley of bullets, Ryan froze time and rushed to the orphanage, Psyshock having vanished through the hole Vulcan made in the wall. Meanwhile, Adam Cat fared little better. Mosquito had taken flight like the insect he was, diving down to try and impale the hero with his stinger. While Adam Cat could easily dodge, Mongrel limited his movements. The strange psycho flickering in and out of existence, propelling himself with short bursts of wind while attempting to hit the hero with his hand tool. Sometimes, he threw a fireball here and there, small fires starting all over the wasteland park. Fireballs, limited invisibility, air conditioning. Ryan recognized these powers as those from knockoff elixirs sold by Dynamis. Mongrel must have drunk a cocktail of them. Since the powers gained were but a shadow of those of true elixirs, his body managed to handle more than two at the cost of his mental faculties. Still, even if forced on the defensive, Adam Cat fought hard to regain the initiative in this 2-on-1 fight. He attempted to punch Mongrel, his hands shining with crimson energy, but in spite of his bestial snarls, the psycho remained careful not to give his foe any opening. When time resumed, Ryan had managed to reach the orphanage, only to backtrack when a dozen wires came out of the hole and threatened to catch him in a net. Psyshock emerged from the hole, having grabbed 4 kids with his tentacle arms, Sarah, her friend, and 2 twin girls no older than 8. His cold alien eyes glanced at Ryan with disdain while one of his wires was making its way inside one of the twins' nose, traces of blood and fur all over his body. Without thinking twice, Ryan grabbed 3 throwing knives, intending to target Psyshock's head. In response, the psycho moved Sarah in the way of Ryan's line of fire, the girl screaming in fear. Ryan froze in shock, which Psyshock immediately exploited to send a tentacle at him. Suffering from his time stop's cooldown, the courier couldn't freeze the clock as the arm hit him with the speed of a harpoon. He managed to grab it with his hands as he was tossed to his back, the wires trying to reach his skull. "Quick save!" Adam Cat shouted, but Mosquito exploited the opportunity to tackle him from the side, throwing the hero through the pen's fence. Dogs and cats immediately poured through, fleeing in all directions. "Shush, it's easier if you don't struggle," Cesare, Psyshock whispered to Ryan. Both through his mouth and that of the child he had connected to, needles appeared at the end of his wires, for an intracranial hijacking. "Just go limp and let me in. We'll be one."
Yeah.
If the danger of his intrusive telepathy, no matter its physical limitations, hadn't caused Ryan to feel murderous animosity towards Psyshock, the child abuse did it. Apparently, Vulcan thought the same. Showing basic human decency, she stopped paying attention to Ryan and instead raised her armor's last functional hand at Psyshock. "Drop the kids, mutant," she warned. "I won't ask twice." "Out of my way, woman," Psyshock replied dismissively, positioning his hostages to protect himself from Vulcan's weaponry. Meanwhile, Mongrel moved towards the pen to finish off Atom Cat while Mosquito flew in circles above them. Some dogs who had remained behind instead of fleeing barked angrily at the genomes present, but were too afraid to attack. In response, Vulcan's fingers opened to reveal holes and unleashed plasma streams at Psyshock. The genius was very careful not to hit the kids, instead, cutting through wires with laser precision. The damaged parts fell off the ground like beheaded snakes, quickly rusting away into organic dust. Exploiting Psyshock's distraction, Ryan stopped time, cut the wires closest to him with his knives, and then rushed towards the children. With a swift swing, he severed the wires holding the twins and caught them while time resumed. The wire invading the hostage's nose kept moving on its own once severed from the hole but quickly fell to the ground. Psyshock answered by sending his wires in all directions, targeting both Ryan and Vulcan with a rain of tentacles. The courier fled while carrying the twins in his arms, while the Auguste simply powered through the attack, her thick armor deflecting everything. Meanwhile, while Atom Cat recovered from his last blow, the shelter's remaining dogs found the courage to try and bite Mongrel when he approached. With a bestial snarl, the psycho raised both hands, channeling a fireball through the right and a swirling vortex of wind with the left. The combination created a torrent of flames which consumed the pets whole. The poor dogs screamed in pain as the improvised flamethrower incinerated them alive, Mongrel's hisses transforming into maniacal laughter. Atom Cat rushed at Mongrel while he was distracted, and this time managed to grab his head with his hand. The psycho's body turned red, his colors muted by a crimson hue, and then exploded. Scratch that, Mongrel was vaporized. His flesh weakly detonated, with barely enough strength to blow air, yet the blast annihilated him without leaving a trace. Clothes, skin, even the tool he carried, they all turned to dust. Clearly, when cornered, Atom Cat had no problem killing. This made Mosquito dive back at him, with murder on his mind. The young superhero froze, as if an idea crossed his mind, before grabbing a pebble on the ground and throwing it at Mosquito. The rock turned red, charged with Atom Cat's power. The psycho protected himself with his arms, the pebble detonating on impact and propelling him against his own minibus. The car's alarm activated, and combined with the noise from the battle, Ryan could barely hear himself. Atom Cat could modulate the strength of his explosions and even delay them. Nice. Ryan himself managed to dodge both Psyshock's attacks and drag the twins to a safe spot, one child despondent, and the other crying in fear. "It's okay, you're safe," Ryan tried to console them, brushing their black hair with his hands. "Heroes are here." His good deed for the day done, the courier immediately returned to the fray. Psyshock had used all his wires to restrain Vulcan, trying to keep the mecha anchored to the ground while desperately trying to find a way inside the pilot cockpit. He looked like a giant squid, trying to restrain a whale. Like before, that despicable bastard used his captives as human shields, preventing the Auguste from using her weapons in close quarters. Enraged, Ryan charged at Psyshock, tossing knives at his skull. Wires deflected them, but this caught the criminal's attention. "A teleportation power," the psycho hissed at Ryan. "You have become a violet? Normally, I would quit back, but in your case, you will go out the way of the rhinoceros," Ryan said with dead seriousness, fisty raised. Painfully. Before Psyshock could react, Ryan stopped the clock again, leaped, and punched the psycho through the skull in the frozen time. His fist gored through the psycho's metal bones and brain both like a donut. Ryan liked to play with his enemies, but he knew better than to give any telepath a chance to fight back. Especially someone as loathsome as Psyshock. When time resumed, Psyshock's mutant body collapsed to the ground in a mess of wires and brain matter, dragging Sarah and the other kid down with him. Ryan quickly caught Sarah with his hands, while Vulcan grabbed the other. "You know, Shorty, if you weren't trying to murder me, I would call you halfway heroic," Ryan said, putting Sarah on the ground while Vulcan did the same with her charge. "Little girl, can you take your friend and move away? The big bot is waiting for you to go to shoot me." Little Sarah nodded profusely, quickly grabbing her fellow kid's hand and running away to safety. Vulcan remained silent, watching the children get out of the way with grim vigilance. Ryan couldn't tell if it was regret, longing, or something else, but she seemed strangely subdued. Then, when certain the children were far away, Vulcan attempted to fire plasma beams at Ryan's face without a word. Expecting the attack, Ryan quickly stopped time and threw knives at her cameras, blinding Vulcan before she could open fire. Adam Cat, meanwhile, attempted to punch Mosquito and blow him up alongside the minibus, but the insect flew away when he moved too close. An enormous shadow flew over the battlefield, followed by a mighty roar. Everyone present froze, from the tiniest animal to Vulcan herself, as a gigantic flying form came into sight. An enormous, 60-foot-long white-scaled lizard, with an elongated neck, dragonfly wings, and golden eyes. Her claws could cut through steel, her tail ended in a flail, and a suit with Dynamis and Il Miglior's logos covered her chest. Wyvern. Once she had finished showing off, the dragon landed right on Vulcan, stomping her mech underfoot with such force, it created a mini crater below. If Ryan hadn't damaged her cameras, the Auguste might have been able to fly away, but now Wyvern kept her pinned to the ground under her enormous weight. Mosquito immediately attempted to fly away. The dragon, quicker, raised her hand. Squash! Wyvern slapped Mosquito from above, the same way a human did with a fly. The hit flattened the insectoid like a smear on the ground, his limbs and wings broken, green blood flowing out of open wounds. Then, without skipping a beat, Wyvern slammed Vulcan's mech to the ground, smashing the miniguns. The Auguste attempted to activate her mini-turbo reactors to fly away, but couldn't escape the dragon's iron grip. "Don't damage the reactor, WIVY." Ryan shouted at her, knowing the danger. "Extract the cockpit." "The cockpit?" Seemingly having heard him, Wyvern's assault turned almost surgical in its execution, the dragon carefully extracting the human within with her claws without damaging the rest of the suit. Before the disheveled Auguste could react, Wyvern tossed her to the ground and Adam Cat moved to restrain her. The intervention had lasted mere seconds. Ryan checked the mech, but thankfully, Vulcan had the foresight to install failsafes in her armor's fusion reactor. The city wouldn't die an atomic death, this time. Instead of inspiring fear, Wyvern's victory caused great joy in the kids, who let out shouts of jubilation after a short silence. Only the child whom Psyshock had connected to remained despondent, her twin trying to wake her up. Ryan immediately rushed to their side to give medical help. Thankfully, he had spent enough loops studying medicine and biology to give her a checkup. While intrusive, Psyshock's orifice invasion usually didn't damage the subject's key areas of the brain. The poor child suffered from a mild concussion but would survive. "Is she okay?" Sarah asked Ryan, the euphoria replaced with worry, as the orphans surrounded them. "Yes," he said, using his trench coat to remove the blood from his patient's nose. "But she will need rest." "They killed the doogies," one of the children said, looking in horror at the animal's burning remains and the destroyed fence. Wyvern observed the scene for a moment, from the hole in the orphanage to Psyshock's rusting remains. "Quick save, we are going to have a long, long conversation," she said, her powerful voice more that of a roaring T-Rex than a human. "You too, Adam Cat. What were you two thinking, going into hostile territory without authorization nor backup? You could have died. They were trying to kidnap children." Adam Cat defended himself. "Then you should have called me for reinforcements," Wyvern replied with a firm tone. You were lucky I trailed Vulcan to make sure she didn't cause a mess. Speaking of Vulcan, she raged as Adam Cat kept her face against the ground, unable to escape his grip. Wyvern transformed back into a human, her suit adapting to her new size while she looked at the Augusti with a mix of vindication and pity. You can only blame yourself for this, Jasmine. Fuck you, Laura, the Augusti genius replied, bitter and angry. Fuck you. Does somebody have a rope? Adam Cat asked, getting sick of restraining Vulcan with his mere hands. I have handcuffs and a blindfold in my car, Ryan said, Wyvern raising an eyebrow at him. I dated weird people. The superheroine glanced at both Ryan and Adam Cat, hands on her waist. You're both grounded. Yes, Dragon Mom, Ryan groaned, before turning towards Mosquito, agonizing in a puddle made of his own blood. He's still alive. Barely, Wyvern replied warily. Why did you kidnap the kids, asshole? Adam Cat snarled at the psycho. Suck my sting, Mosquito hissed. Answer the question, and we will give you medical care, Wyvern said firmly. While she was angry at her charges for acting on their lonesome, she had no pity to spare for the psycho. In your current condition, even with your enhanced metabolism, you will bleed out within minutes. Mosquito remained silent for a few seconds, probably weighing the odds of risking his boss killing him for snitching, versus dying right now. Survival instinct being a powerful force, he decided to speak. It's the place, the shafts are too small for adults, and these crazy robots, they shoot genomes on sight. Robots? Wyvern repeated. What place? Ryan probed him, curious. A bunker Adam wants to access, below the junkyard, don't know what, Mosquito hissed in agony. Please, the pain, it's atrocious. I've dialed the medics when I saw the kids, Wyvern said, touching her earpiece. They should arrive soon. And with these words, Ryan handcuffed Vulcan, having helped save an orphanage. He hoped his karma meter would go up after that. Other kids emerged from the orphanage, the battle over, and immediately rushed to Wyvern's side, pestering her with autographs. Others moved to help their wounded member, Ryan hearing the name Julia being thrown around a lot. Hey, Kitty, if you can create explosive projectiles, why don't you carry throwing knives? Ryan asked Adam Cat, that detail having bothered him. It would be much more practical than grabbing improvised projectiles. I didn't realize I could use my power this way, Adam Cat admitted, a bit sheepish. I knew I could delay the detonation by a few seconds, but I never thought I could combine that with projectiles to attack at range. It's only in the thick of action that it clicked for me. Well, you're still green. And he trailed off, trying to find a good quip, Violet. Wow, I will let you stew for 1 hour until you find a decent comeback. Truthfully, Kitty should be proud to have done so well on raw talent alone. Ryan himself looked at his cell phone, to see if the battle had made it to the news. Instead, he received a notification from his devices inside Il Miglior's HQ. Backdoor detected. Huh. Ryan wasn't the only one spying Dynamis through its computer systems. He set out to track down the IP to investigate, in case it was the assassin's doing. Hey, kids, I know the perfect way to cheer you up, Ryan proposed, raising his phone. Who wants a group photo with Wyvern? Me. 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 The kids all raised their hands, much to Wyvern's embarrassment and Adam Cat's amusement. Even grumpy little Sarah seemed a bit enthusiastic. They spent minutes waiting for the private security doing funny selfies, Vulcan glaring at them and Mosquito bleeding to death in the background.